Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the next edition of Adaption, our new format here at ADA about adapting to the currently very rapidly changing environment. In this videocast format of Adaption, we're talking to politicians, to medics, to employees, to freelancers, to CEOs, to anyone really who is very well versed in adapting to a rapidly changing world. And that's sadly very current right now in this Corona pandemic. And today we're very happy to have with us Dr. Ijad Madisch. He is the CEO and founder of Researchgate, which we'll talk about in a little bit. He's also a virologist by training, also actually a computer programmer, and he's also a member of the Digital Council of the German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Welcome, Ijad.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, Ijad, in these trying times, we're always concerned with everybody's well-being, first of all. So, quite frankly, how are you today?
I'm good. Very good. I hope you are also fine.
We are luckily actually also healthy in our team. But the question is actually also meant quite seriously because many of us have the situation that we're now working either from home or in some sort of very well changed or adapted environment. How has your daily routine or work life changed, if at all?
Yeah, so we went with the whole company roughly 2 weeks ago to remote work. It's of course for us, not of course, but it's for us the first time that we're all working remote. It has been interestingly in the beginning a challenge, but you start to adapt to the situation, and then honestly, there are also advantages to work remote. I think we try to squeeze out as much as possible out of the situation, the advantages. However, I really miss the interactions with human beings and being in the same room and getting things faster done than being in a virtual conference where connections are failing or people don't hear properly what's being discussed. So I'm still going sometimes to the office if I have important meetings or interviews like this one. So I have a strong internet connection. Then it's not like I still have a bad connection at home. Telecom is working on it. So hopefully in 2 weeks I have a faster connection at home so I can stay at home for important stuff as well.
Can you give us one quick major advice how you cope with the situation? Anything you regularly do to somehow deal with the different situation?
So I try to honestly separate my work environment and home from my, let's say, leisure time physically. Of course, not everyone can do that. I'm lucky that I have one separate room where I can work in, but I need to, of course, also adjust this. I never worked in that room before. And I also try to stick to my old routines, which is like working out in the morning and then starting to work at a very particular time. I definitely have seen that I'm using social media more now than before. I think this trend is changing right now. So I tried to reduce my social media usage over the last, I would say 1 to 2 years. I definitely have noticed an increase in the last couple of weeks. But try to stick to routines as much as possible. Try to read in between, like reading books, which helps as well, or playing Nintendo Switch.
Okay, that's a good series of advice. I think it resonates with a lot of things I, for example, do myself to kind of keep healthy and not go insane. When you founded ResearchGate as a social network for scientists in 2008, you had a specific mission to enable social networking and connections amongst scientists. Since the coronavirus has started, the crisis has started, what kind of different patterns of activity do you observe on the network?
So first of all, I think what the advantage is to start a little bit high level. The advantage of us as a team and the company is we have been working now for almost 10 years on helping scientists to increase their productivity while they're working. So at the end, we are trying to make scientists, or we try to match scientists to the resources and people and devices they need to be successful in their research. So all the knowledge we have gained over the last 10 years are extremely helpful in also now addressing the current COVID-19 crisis in the research world. Interestingly, the feature set we have built at ResearchGate over the last decade is matching quite well what scientists do need right now to be more effective. I'll give you one example, which also then alludes to the changes of how scientists are working. So it's combining two elements. One is, so scientists, especially in the COVID area right now, are uploading preprints, so articles which haven't been published yet in a journal, in a scientific journal yet. They're uploading those preprints way faster without considering to publish it in a journal at all. So the fact, like this idea of, okay, I will figure out later where to publish this article is become predominant in the current climate. So people just want to get out with their results as fast as possible. And what then we have built over the last decade is a very strong understanding of the research article. So if someone uploads a document of any kind, it's a PDF or doc file with research content in it, we are quite strong in extracting relevant information, for example, citations. So we know then, okay, person A is citing person B, and person B is on ResearchGate as well. And then we can notify person B in real time that his paper or his data was cited by another scientist. These citation patterns or these citation extraction and notifications took like up to a year in the old world. And this is now instant in our world. And I think this is one of the changes we have seen, is that the feature set we already provided to the world is just being used now more by the COVID researchers. Nevertheless, we then also had a constant communication with our COVID scientists, and one of the features they asked for and matched quite well our understanding of the problem space is a page where they're aggregating all the relevant research and data and people around COVID-19. Let's call it a virtual community page. And that is what we have built within 9 days, which is incredible. Again, the team, kudos to the team. They were like working nonstop to get that done quickly. And we launched it last Thursday, so a couple of days ago. And it has been, after we launched it, it was down. Some of the stuff didn't work because the usage was then again high. So we just had to adapt and adjust, but everything is now going very smoothly, and we are continue to improve that page step by step.
So you just mentioned that activity was up. Are you seeing any kinds of different patterns in activity since the crisis started? And now, of course, you just mentioned the community page, which I'm sure will show interesting patterns of activity very soon. But crisis-wise, anything interesting that you've noticed?
So if you look at overall usage, it's interesting because when like 2 weeks ago, when the whole world started to press a pause button, we saw in general engagement and general usage on ResearchGate, like over the whole community, had a dip. I can tell you roughly 2 days ago or 3 days ago, the dip is just neutralized. So we were back and increasing in engagement then following our plan. So interestingly, I think the last 2 weeks, people started to go home, started to adapt to the new situation, and now they start to work again, and also using resources like ResearchGate even more so, because now they have to talk to scientists virtually and not anymore in their lab. So these things start to work more, generally speaking. If you look at COVID and Corona research related, there was high activity in that space from the first day on. Again, it doesn't, like if you compare like COVID research to all the other research which happenings on the world, it's still a fraction of what's happening in ResearchGate. So we have, I don't know, 80 million visits per month, over 1 billion page views per month. So relatively, it's a small portion, but if you look closer and just analyze that portion, that is growing faster than the other areas.
On a basic level, one could argue, I think one could argue that COVID-19 is a major argument why researchers, scientists all over the world need to collaborate, for example, to find the right medication that might work and those kinds of things. Do you think this happens already in sufficiently, or do you think much more needs to be done about that?
It's interesting. It's a good question. The interesting thing, if you look at the current world, that every country is closing their borders. So it's a very, let's say, archaic way of trying to solve a problem of an invisible enemy, right? So, and interestingly, if you look at what happens in ResearchGate around COVID-19, no borders are being shut. So science doesn't care about borders. And we try to facilitate, enable, create the environment where exactly these borders are not being shut, but rather more opened. And we see this collaboration happening in ResearchGate, but also in other places in the world where they try to build offers for scientists. And what I really like about that is that after the crisis, I hope that the world comes closer to each other because of this COVID crisis. I try to relate it to like a smaller world, like if you take a company, I think if you're going remote and you're coming back, and then you come back out of it like healthy and stronger again, it would change the culture. And I also think that the world will, after this crisis, where basically there's no real person who induced that from a scientific point of view, just a virus jumped from animals to human beings and everyone is affected equally. People will come, or we as human race will come out of that stronger. And a major role, in my opinion, will play the science world, because they don't care right now about these borders. And we see this happening in ResearchGate, but they need the right tools. So yes, there's happening a lot, and we're combining the different inputs in this one space. So not only people talk about vaccine or talking about the basic science of the virus, but also they talk about what can you do as a country, how can you be safe, what are the measures a country has to take, like also from a quite political level. And I'm bringing this all together in one place. I think it's a very, very important part of the success in the next couple of months, that we're not creating silos within the COVID-19 research.
So you have a very interesting triple hat function, right? You're a CEO, so you're an employer, basically. You're a business leader. You're also wearing a hat, so you have a quadruple hat function. And of course, it's a superhero hat. But in all seriousness, the second hat, I would say, is you're a virologist by training. You have a medical background, and you're advising a government. So you are involved in politics, at least in an advisory role. So I wonder, give us an insight into your mind. What hat has you the most concerned right now? What are we not looking at enough? The economic impact, the sort of medical prognoses, or is it the societal impact that politics should really be reining in?
Honestly, I'm right now, most of my time, I'm focusing on ResearchGate and enabling scientists all over the world to find the solution faster. And solution, I mean either a vaccine or advising the politicians with the right data to drive good decisions. I was thinking, and you said that, I was thinking about where can I have the most impact as Ijad now. So as you said, I'm a medical doctor. I could work as a medical doctor now in the hospital. I could do, my doctoral thesis is in virology. I could do the testing easily. I did this, my whole PhD thesis, the testing which you need now to say if you are positive or negative. And of course I can continue on work on ResearchGate, or I could work on the digital part of the government. I have to be honest, on the digital, I'm combining the digital with ResearchGate a little bit. So I want to influence the politicians right now around topics I feel comfortable with, which is science and connecting scientists. Not only, and I think this is sometimes which we are not thinking through well enough, is it's not only about connecting the scientists in Germany or the doctors in Germany with each other. It's, you have to connect the whole European Union / the whole world with each other. And I think we have to think more globally, because the virus is a global problem. As I said, shutting borders doesn't help. Like, what is this measure going to do in the future? Yes, it is a quick act, and it shows that we are still, as like in the politics, can still do stuff and don't have to do, like, we don't have to talk for months until things happening. But at the end, when are we going to open the borders again? When are we going to open schools again? It's a very tough question to answer. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use my knowledge in connecting scientists worldwide and try to project this into all the other areas, and to do the best. And my brother gave a quite, my brother is a professor in Hanover, and he's a clinical director of a big hospital there. And he made a funny joke. He said, "Man, if you coming back to be a doctor, then we really have a problem." So, yeah, making jokes about my my medical degree. So I think I want to devote most of my time in connecting scientists all over the world. And the important thing is, when we talk about scientists, I really talk about all scientists, not only the COVID scientists. We have more problems in the world, and COVID will be one phase. We still have the climate crisis, which is still ongoing. So a lot of things to do. So I'm devoting most of my time into the networking of scientists worldwide.
Can I quickly jump in on the political point that you just made? You hope for a better and more intense global collaboration. But when we look at the virus at the moment, and this is not the first time, people always try to manipulate the virus into being something more or less national. Like in the Spanish flu, 1918, 1919, it was the Spanish flu, which was of course not true. It was just happened to appeared to start in Spain. Now we have the Chinese virus. We have the idea that the US crafted the virus to harm China, and we have the Italian virus also. So this is basically an argument against what you just said, and more like that we return to a world that is more nationalistic and not more globally connected.
Yeah, absolutely, Miriam. I think this is a challenge where I think, again, science can play a very important role. I think we have to combine journalism more with science in the future, which is not an easy thing, but I think it is important to really communicate more what the scientists think. And we, for example, here in Germany, Drosten, from Charité Virology, he has become like a figure in Germany, right? And he's a scientist, and people tell me it's so exciting to listen to him, what he's talking about. And I think, honestly, there are more scientists you can listen to them, and they have the same impact on you like Drosten has on Germany right now. And I think what we have to do is put science again more into our focus, and not beliefs, and not drama, and this is from this country and they're doing this, and this is unfortunate. This is unfortunate that human beings are like that. But I think science again can play an important role in the future to unbreak or to break these patterns, and to really create a global thinking. And I hope that the EU will be a good example for the world, that despite of everyone is shutting the borders right now in the EU, that after the first shock, and I always compare this to my medical training, if you like in panic, and I tell this also my employees, the most important thing, don't panic. Like, this doesn't help. So you have to, like, every decision you're making can guide you into a wrong direction. Think, and the most important thing is to think. And I think the first reaction was closing the borders, and it's fine, and I'm sure they have their reasons to do that, but I think we have to think now, what is the best for the EU, and maybe we can be a role model worldwide and can change other countries and other continents by doing what we do here in the European Union.
So you were just saying that science needs to be more explained to the public on the one hand, but also there need to be people who make it more tangible. We recently wrote a piece about all the different prognoses, all these models that try to calculate the spread and the development of the virus. what is your stance on them? Because many of them seem to have vastly different assumptions, vastly different data input, and vastly different outcomes. So for all the people right now who are listening and saying, I want to listen to science, I want to understand it, and I want to be prepared so that I can adapt to this new situation, how to be adaptive in a moment where science is, quite frankly, quite confusing. What do you make of all those prognoses?
This is what science is about, right? Science, unfortunately, is not binary. Science is sometimes very confusing, and this is what makes science so interesting, that you have different inputs and different direction, different opinions, and it is not always like one right answer. Right now, the modeling, as an example, even if the scientists are not right now clear about what's the right model, I honestly think we also have to be more, let's say, like smarter and conscious what we're communicating to the world. Like, so, and this is also, again, when we talk about ResearchGate, only scientists can use the product. It creates a safe space for the experts to have a conversation before you enroll the whole world. And that is also, it's tough to execute this on a global scale with all the people doing their work in this world. But I think sometimes it needs, let's say, a couple of more rounds of conversation amongst scientists before we go out with data. And I think this is something where, where I think in the past, you need to be immediately open and share everything. It's not always good. Like, sometimes it's dangerous. Just imagine, we have this right now with chloroquine and azathioprine, so two drugs. One is, I think, an HIV drug, and one is a malaria drug, which have like some effect, which they have seen in some, let's say, okayish designed study. And first, like, research shows that there might be an effect, and now everyone thinks this thing is working, and Trump says, yeah, let's produce this and let's just give it to the people, and there shouldn't be any harm to the people. Why we just not try it out? And yes, but there is harm. Like, if you're trying out random drugs to people, first of all, there are serious side effects. Plus, you're putting a lot of pressure on the virus in terms of evolutionary pressure if the drug doesn't work, or even if it's not only working to 60 or 70%. And in this, again, puts pressure on the virus. This could potentially mutate. There's so many like elements which, of course, a normal person doesn't get, and which is fine. But then we as scientists have to be careful when we're going out with which information and who should we communicate before. So speaking to the models are tough, and I can always, at the end of I read the papers and think, yeah, this makes sense. And then you run out, yeah, this also makes sense. So even me, it's tough for me to evaluate. And I think we just have to wait. And as just wash your hands. I think this is the first big step. But honestly, we should wash our hands even without COVID. So, which is a good thing. If you look at the number of infections in the world right now, like influenza, so flu infections significantly went down because of people washing their hands. So, yeah, which is a good thing.
I somehow get the feeling that there are people who actually just learned that washing their hands might be a good idea by COVID-19. Didn't know about that before, but that's just a side remark. Yet, one thing regarding the technological issues related to this virus and this crisis, I think we're seeing a pretty lively debate evolving, especially in Europe, around so-called tracing technology. So using Bluetooth apps on your mobile phone to somehow allow the health authorities to follow up with how the infection spreads and to warn people who might have been in touch with infected people and these kinds of things, which all collide with the privacy rules and regulations in Europe in most ways. First of all, what do you think about it? And second, does the advisory council of the chancellor, where you're a member of, deal with these technological questions these days?
Yeah. So second question first, yes. I am not actively involved there. Chris Bose and Stefanie Kaiser from the Digital Council are actively working on exactly when it comes to on the topic of tracing and involving in technology in that and using that. So, my personal opinion is it's a very tough question, and it's not an easy. There's no easy answer. If there would be an easy answer, I'm sure you, Miriam, you're smarter than me. You would have come up with the answer and would just have shared it with the world, and we could just do it. The challenge here is that we have to, on the one hand, we want to give more freedom back to the people, but in order to give them more freedom, we need to know, are they infectious or not? And the only way how you can know it is by testing a lot. In order to test a lot, you also then somehow have to save the data in order to use the data. So if you just creating data without using it, it's of course then again tough. It's again, very tough question. I don't have a good answer for that. I just think we need more consciousness, more awareness of the people, which I think they're getting right now because they see the dramatic measures the government is taking. But however, I still don't know what's going to happen on the, like, we all know 20th is right now the cutoff date. What's going to happen after the 20th? That's what I'm asking myself. Like, what are we going to change after the 20th if we don't use technology to somehow track progress? And of course, in a fashion that is okay with all the privacy and concerns with which the people have right now. So it is again a tough question, but I know that Chris Boos and Stephanie Kaiser are amazing. They will figure something out with the Digital Council and the government and all the people who are involved. But without technology, in my opinion, it will be very tough to not throw away the archaic solutions, which are closing borders, putting people into their home and closing the doors. So I think it's a trade-off between, yes, people, you can stay at home and we close the doors and you have to stay there, versus I give a little bit of my privacy, as little as possible, but then we have technology to control that. Yeah, so I think this will be very tough, because at the end, who's deciding in the future when to use that technology for what, right? Again, very tough questions, but I'm lucky that people like you exist to raise those questions, and then other smarter people will figure the answers to these questions out.
Yeah, finally, you're a very good example for someone who is able to adapt and help others adapt, but you don't really conform. I remember a rather infamous photo of you with the Chancellor and the entire Digital Council, which I would just advise everybody to look up for themselves to see if they can spot you. And now here you are.
Here, right? Can you not just like slide it in and show it for a second?
Yes, and here comes the photo. And now you're sitting here with a superhero hat. I wonder, what do you do at the moment in a time that I think for many people seems quite monotonous, and it seems like every day is the same? You are someone who likes to stick out because you are kind of extraordinary and you have a very colorful presence. What do you do to keep your days somehow exciting, adventurous, colorful these days?
So how I see the world you always have boundaries, and there's no freedom in that case, right? You always can, freedom is a very tough word, but you always can find bigger boundaries in which you go through. Like you could say, yes, I'm free now in Germany, but then you think, no, I'm not, because if I really want to go into space and want to do this and this, that's not possible. So I can't just decide to go into space. So there's always a border in our life, and these borders will exist and they will come. And our brain is maybe the biggest border we have. If you use the brain to think through all the things which you potentially could do in this world and what your brain is doing with you as a person. So I'm always try to do the best out of this situation, which is, and I think we can be very lucky that we have the internet, that we have the way how we connect now, and really getting to know people, even if you haven't seen them before. So that's my drug, to use the border and to play in those borders as good as possible and see it as a game. I always see it like as a game. And if you start to see things like a game, it becomes more playful and it takes the seriousness of all these things away.
I think it's a very safe drug too.
Yes.
Did you try out Plague Inc. yet? The computer game Plague that is exactly about the situation we're in, about a virus that is supposed to kill humanity. just for
Okay,
moments
cool.
of boredom, this could be an idea.
I will check it out. Cool.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to us and for your wonderful and really inspiring insights. And stay safe, see what we can do together to get through this crisis with some optimism, some entertainment, some non-conformity, and a little bit of hope as well. And of course, science and research.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.